So you ready for a good tandem story? Because this is the worst probably experience of my life.
And you do it with him, bro.
That's what I'm saying. So I'll give you the choice. I'll take you for a tandem first, or I'll tell you the story.
I want to hear the
Let's
story.
hear the story.
Then it'll be more scary.
So if I look back at my career, I actually am probably more proud of some of the jump stuff that we did because we figured out a complex solution to a difficult problem.
You talking about SEAL team stuff?
SEAL team stuff.
Okay.
We did a lot of testing and evaluation, and there's places in the world that are really hard to get to. And a lot of the times we use assets that are really loud. And guess what? People hear those assets. They know what that generally means if they're on their A game, and they bail. So maybe it'd be a good idea to be able to get people to remote areas. So we went all over the U.S., up into Colorado. We did jumps into the Leadville airport, like in an elevation above 10,000 feet. And it's difficult. We did tree stuff. We did mountainous exits. We did nighttime stuff. We jumped equipment. We jumped bundles. We played around with all sorts of different canopies just to figure out these complex solutions of getting people places that are hard to go.
Yeah.
And I've always liked jumping. So I was kind of specialized in doing the tandems for those operations. Surprisingly enough, I speak English at probably a high school level. You get me into a foreign country, I can't speak the language, nor can most guys. So we have to bring with us interpreters.
Oh, yeah.
Who don't know how to jump out of airplanes.
Yeah.
So there we were.
It's so interesting because now you're jumping out of an airplane with a mouthpiece. You need like basically a Google translator.
Oh, it gets better. So there we were in a galaxy far, far away back in like 2004. And a complex problem presented itself. And we needed to take somebody who spoke the native tongue. Sure. And at the time, I needed to go pack the parachute. So I actually didn't see the passenger until we got onto the C-130 aircraft at night. Now, mind you, this was going to be, we were on oxygen for this jump, so we were at least 15,000 feet above ground level. I think the drop zone was at 5,000 to 7,000 feet, so we were in the mid-20s.
How cold is it up there?
Oh, we're getting there because that's part of the story.
Fuck.
So it's nighttime. The brief goes down. I go and I pack the parachute. Another one of the tandem masters puts the interpreter into a tandem harness. Now, the civilian tandem harness that I'll put you in doesn't have some of the attachment points because my rucksack with all of my stuff then went on the front of him. I had my weapon on me, and he had 2 oxygen bottles on him with one hose going to me, one hose going to him. It was a complete
shit show.
I mean, it's really, if you were to look up shit show, there might be a picture of
like
that.
Complete shit show. Just this scared little translator like this.
Already a disaster.
All right.
Full of gear.
So it's nighttime, right?
What's he getting paid an hour?
I don't know. He quit 2 days after this happened, so I don't think he got his paycheck. He didn't make it to the 15th. So we go out there, and the ambient lighting on a C-130 to preserve your night vision before we flip down our goggles is red lights because it helps preserve your night vision. We get onto the airplane. I meet this dude. He is wearing man jammies, which is basically very thin. It looks like a dress for a dude, and sandals. Now, I am wearing every piece of cold weather clothing that I owned because it was the wintertime. And I looked at him and I was like, good for you, sir. I appreciate your effort.
Yeah.
Come to find out, he had never been in an airplane. So not only was he about to do his first flight, he was about to do his first jump at night at an altitude in the mid-20s in a galaxy far, far away.
And some sandals.
This poor man.
And some sandals. So now me, I have every layer of cold weather gear on possible, gloves. And so the flight takes off. There was a little bit of a flight time.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did anybody say, bro, you need a jacket, you need some pants?
Shooter's choice. You know, you bring to the table what you want to play with. Mm-hmm. You know,
Gotcha. All right.
He might have had some warmies on underneath. I was like, all right, cool. It's aggressive, but I respect it.
Own, yeah.
I did that stupid record jump with a long sleeve T-shirt on. I'm not the smartest person either, right? It was negative 50 at exit altitude for that jump. So it's. I'd like to say I'm a sharp tool in the shed. I'm not a rake. You know what I mean? I'm more along the lines of like an axe or a shear or something like that, but I don't always make the best decisions either. So the plane takes off, and about 30 minutes, you know, there's a lot of time in flight. So I go to sleep. Airplanes put me to sleep. He didn't go to sleep. He, for whatever reason, I can't figure out why, was a little bit more emotionally involved with the situation.
I wonder.
So he starts throwing up about 10 minutes before we have to jock up. Because it's very structured. Military free fall is very structured. It's based on 20-minute warnings, 10-minute warnings, and it's 6 minutes before you exit the aircraft for a military tandem. You hook up to your passenger. So he has his little frap hat on, and he was getting sick, thrown up into a bag. So we were going to put him on pure oxygen early so he could it helps you feel better a little bit. So we put him on pure oxygen, seemed to calm down a little bit. At 6 minutes, I stand up. We had a great support crew because of all that shit show that was attached to him and then the stuff that was attached to me. I basically just stood there and everybody else hooked me up. And there was another jump master just to make sure that everything was going to go okay. Because the tandem stuff can be complex with all those extra components. And then the ramp comes down. So to add a layer to this story, we were not a very far distance from another sovereign nation. And we'll leave it at that. So we get ready to jump. And the way the ramp comes down, and there was this weird suspended dust in the air. It looked like pea soup through my night vision goggles. I don't know what it looked like through the Terp's eyes because he didn't have a pair of night vision goggles.
Goggles?
No, I mean, he had his eyes, so he had the ability to see, just not at night.
The plane has been warm up till now, right? And now...
Yes, the temperature goes down as the ramp comes down.
Yeah.
And so we're looking out, and there was 2 lines of people getting ready to jump. And the way it works is one line goes out, followed by the other line. It's better than having one really long line because as each person goes, the gap in between kind of, it increases. And on a C-130, every second that you are delayed from another jumper is 100 yards because they're going so fast. So if you're so let's say we had 10 jumpers. Let's say there was 1 second separation between them. That's a kilometer between the first jumper and the last jumper. Yeah. So to shorten that, you can go side by side. There's a variety of ways, but the goal is to get out as fast as possible. So you're as close to each other as you can be because we navigate together under canopy, talking on our radios. Oh, in my oxygen mask is my radio. I have the ability. On my chest, I have a navigation board with a compass, an altimeter, and a GPS. In between,
so much fucking gear.
Oh, this was game on. Like, we were going to fully navigate under canopy. We probably would have been under canopy for maybe 20, 30 minutes. Just
what does that under canopy mean?
Parachutes open over your head. We had high glide parachutes, so we were traveling a substantial distance, totally blacked out, no markings, either overt or covert. We had no IR stuff because we were aware that other people have the ability to see that IR signature stuff.
What is IR?
Infrared. So there's chem lights
How cool is this shit?
Yeah, there's chem lights you can crack that glow not to the naked eye, but through night vision goggles, it looks like a beacon. Or we have strobe covers that are IR strobe covers, and you flip it on, and you can see the flash. But anybody who has the IR ability to see that, or even old like Sony cameras have a night vision setting, you can look up there and you can see that stuff as well. So we're fully blacked out. I had my own little navigation kit, and the plan is that I was the last guy in the first row because I had to basically waddle. And this dude, by the way, 2 inches taller than me, which is unheard of for
a person of
a dude from that galaxy.
From that area. You almost said it. You almost said it because of bad nutrition or whatever.
Almost unheard of from a dude from that galaxy. So the goal is, this first row starts going. I'm going to be the last jumper to go, but hopefully I've waddled to the edge by the time the rest of these people go. So as the last guy goes, I go immediately as well. And because you're jumping with another human being who has a vote, unfortunately, when you do a tandem, if you look at a video of somebody doing a free fall in a tandem, there's a drogue parachute that's suspended behind them. It slows down 2 bodies to the speed of 1 because you have the double weight, but only 1 surface area cutting through the wind. So that drogue parachute has to be out for your main parachute to come off your back.
That comes out right away?
It's like the little smaller
It's a little small one. It's slowing you down. So in the military setting, these guys, the guys I was with, were jumping out and they were pulling their parachute 4 seconds later because we wanted to fly under canopy, not fall down.
Okay.
So the faster you can get your parachute off your back, the better. Well, I need to have that drogue parachute out before I can pull my main parachute. So I had a guy standing on the ramp of the aircraft who was holding on to that drogue parachute, which probably saved my life because at about the point in this story, this is where it transitions to one of the worst experiences of my life. So the first jumper goes into the pea soup. And
by the way, this guy's in front of you.
He is hooked up to me in front of me.
All the gear that
it looks like I'm jumping
covered this big
small rhinoceros in front of me.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's taller than me.
Yes.
And he's just kind of holding onto the ruck, and he sees people start to jump, and at that point decided that he was no longer interested in this skydiving evolution.
Not your choice this far, my man.
So he puts his feet out in front of us and starts clawing like a cat that's wet to try to get a hold of the side of the aircraft. So my only choice is to bear hug him at this point and start hip checking him to get towards the ramp.
Oh, you going.
So now mind you, though, that my row is already gone. Now the other row, they're gone too. And I'm on the airplane by myself. 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds. I finally get up to the edge of the aircraft holding onto this dude, and we basically go out feet first, standing up, his feet hit the wind first, and we immediately start spinning like a top, which thankfully that my buddy, who ended up jumping out after us, he also got completely hosed in this evolution. He held onto my drogue until it came to extension. And I'd have enough experience that I felt it tug on the gear. I just felt the sensation that the drogue was out, and I immediately pulled our parachute, even though we were spinning like a complete top.
Oh, my.
So the parachute comes out, and the lines are just twisted 3/4 of the way up. Now, mind you, I can see all this. My man is just levitating in space, I think.
He thinks
he's just now...
This is the worst night of his life.
He's just now in it. He's now levitating, right? He's just now in the pitch black. He can probably hear the C-130 flying away.
Freezing.
Whatever. So the parachute's opening, and as we went out, because his feet went out first, my body kind of sunk down underneath him. The drogue pulled and then pulled us to a belly to the earth orientation, which shifted him the direction it should have been, but it grabbed that board that had all of my navigational tools and pinned it in between us.
So you can't see.
Yeah, we'll get to that. It's good. Fuck. So the parachute opens. I get all the twists out. And now, in the meantime, while all this is happening, so I'm in the airplane probably by myself for, I'll say, between 10 to 15 seconds. So we're talking at least 1 kilometer to 1.5 kilometers from the last jumper that got out before me.
So you're so far away.
But now I can hear them talking because there's a series of procedures. You know, you make sure that everybody's there. The lead jumper starts navigating. They're waiting for me to check in. And I would like to think that I'm pretty good at keeping my shit together. And I always prided myself on sounding calm on the radio. I don't know how calm I was sounding in these particular moments because they're waiting for me to check in, and I'm probably like, I got some shit going on. And like I was in an elevated state at this point. All right, the pot wasn't boiling, but there was some fucking bubbles on the bottom of the pan.
Yeah.
So I get the canopy open, and I can't see anybody. I can hear them checking in on the radio. I can hear them calling the bearing that they're going to be flying. So they were trying to give me references to help me out. So now the canopy's open. I'm looking down at a mountain range. And somewhere in this mountain range is the border to a country. And I don't know if I'm flying towards it or away from it. All it looks like is a mountain range. And so, you know, pre-GPS, I was a point man, so I'd walk up front and I would do compass navigation, but a lot of the times you just pick a star. And if you can find the North Star, right, you can orient yourself and you can navigate. Well, surprisingly enough, when you look at the stars through night vision goggles, they're all pretty goddamn bright.
Yeah, they all look
so I'm looking for the North Star, and I'm just like, oh, God.
Look like the North, yeah.
So they're all just beacons, and of course there's millions of them, so like that's out.
Yeah.
So I just pick a direction, and I'm trying to get in between me and the tandem passenger. And at this point, I can feel him in front, and he's kind of convulsing a little bit.
Crying.
I don't know what was going on. And then it seemed like we were flying through basically like a cloud. So I started getting moisture all over me. And I'm reaching in, and I finally get the compass board out that has the compass, which is largely irrelevant at this point, the altimeter, which just gives me that visual reference, and then my GPS, which I really wanted because I had all of the points locked into place, and I could just hit, go to and navigate to one. Thankfully, and for my benefit, it had factory reset, so it was showing me as being directly over the top of Hong Kong. So that was really helpful in that situation. So,
holy fuck! And how much time has gone by so far?
A couple minutes. And so, and again, I just keep getting wetter and wetter, and I'm trying to manipulate the GPS, but my gloves are now completely soaked. And at this point, our canopy goes into a radical dive. And I look to see what it is, and the tandem passenger has climbed up, and he's grabbed one of the control toggles, and he's hand over handing up the control toggle, initiating this crazy spin down towards...
Because he's just panicking.
He's panicking. Well, he can't see anything. To me, it's a daylight. To him, it's just a nightmare that he's living.
and it almost been better choke him to sleep and just jump.
Yeah, we're getting to that. Point. So my only emergency procedure that I could think of to remedy the problem was to elbow him at the back of his head as hard as I could.
Yeah.
I was trying to separate his spine, actually, if I'm being honest. I was trying to knock his head off of his spinal column.
Because you were both going to die.
We were both going to die. So he goes limp eventually, and I just go back to work. So
this poor guy, just trying to help you. Hey, dude, get the fuck!
Yeah. You're going to be super wet.
You don't understand, though. Once the spins start coming and they start increasing, it's like the centrifugal force. Some bad things can happen. They can accelerate on themselves. It can get uncontrollable. So I was just literally trying to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So now I'm totally wet. I'm trying to get my GPS on. I can't. And so I have already taken my oxygen mask off. I hate those things. And we had been at altitude enough that I felt fine. I left the oxygen mask on him. So I can't push the buttons on my GPS, so I needed to take my glove off. And the only option I had to do was to bite it off. And as I brought up my glove to my mouth to bite it off, I realized that it wasn't moisture from the air. It was vomit from the passenger in front of me that I was covered in. Because he was filling up his oxygen mask with vomit to the anti-suffocation valve, which was then spitting all over me.
That's just
so
awesome.
I had to bite off every finger of my glove through his vomit.
Oh, God.
That feels great. And I'm sure he eats great.
So I spit it into the app, just spit it off. Keep working with my GPS the whole time. I'm trying to check in on the radio, try to find the rest of the guys, trying to pick a point to land. And at some point, it's like, I don't know where I am. I now have to pick a landing zone, and I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Like
with dead weight.
With no idea. Well, no, he wakes up again. It gets better again. So as I'm messing with the GPS again and I'm looking over my shoulder, we start to dive in the other direction because he repeated his emergency move of trying to climb hand over hand.
He popped up like a zombie?
He came back at it, dude.
Shit translating zombie?
So he came...
Vomit everywhere.
Yeah, no, I'm covered.
Any idea what he was eating? Would he give it away?
Later, yes, because I saw his oxygen mask. There was carrots in there. There was some eggs in there. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
I was trying
Carrots
to figure out what ethnicity was based off the food.
But he was eating American food because he was with us on the base.
Yeah, carrots and eggs are great.
Yeah, he should chew better, though, but I digress. So now we're in a left-hand turn, and I just went back to my original procedure and just start beating the crap out of this dude. So he'll just leave it alone.
Why? Why are you doing this?
Not the time to talk about
it, right? Cave the inside of your head.
So he goes, he's out again, or he relaxes. It's like, hey, buddy, take it easy. So so in the position he's in, relaxing, imagine being suspended from a harness, and he's just got all arms and legs limp, head down, and his toes are like the lowest point. So I eventually realized we're not going to make where we're supposed to be. I'm going to be by myself, so let's find a suitable place to land. And I look and I find basically a dry riverbed. But you can see there's boulders and rocks and all sorts of stuff.
On your GPS?
No.
Oh,
I have no idea.
Night vision?
Through my night, I'm just visually looking down at a frickin' mountain range that the Himalaya, the Everest is in. The Himalayan range is the southern end of it. And you're like...
That's an inviting area.
It is.
That's super inviting.
And it's like I picked out an area where it looked like a dry riverbed. And, when you land a canopy, you want to land it into the wind because it slows your forward speed and it makes the landing much easier. By this point, I was very upset, not only at what the situation, but the individual who was attached to me. So I went the opposite route. I essentially set up to go downwind so we would have more speed.
To punish him more?
Yes.
To punish him
more. And then so I brought it in.
Because he wasn't cold enough.
So I brought it in to get ready to land. And mind you, he's sitting there. I think he was awake at this point because he was moving around, but his toes are just dangling. And now I can see the ground coming. He cannot. So about 100 feet off the ground, I just let go of the steering toggles. And I went into the pose that I go with when I do like calendar shoots, on a bearskin rug where you have like your hands under your chin and your feet and legs are
I've
out
seen
together.
You in that position and it's hot.
So he contacted the ground with his toes, and I surfed him out doing that, pushing on the back of his head for probably 100 feet.
You used him as a surfboard.
I didn't touch the ground until we came to a complete stop.
He's all,
this is great.
Yeah. So we surf it in.
He deserved it because, he was there.
We surf it in. I unhooked from the Tandem, grabbed my weapon, went to a high ground, like just stay here. Mind you, the most heavily landmine country on the face of the planet.
Jesus
Go to some high ground, get the radio, get in contact with an aircraft. They push an aircraft over. We're nowhere near where we're supposed to be. So then I go back and now I'll go check and make sure my guy's okay, right? Because his safety is my main priority this entire time. And we go back and so I see his altimeter is completely shattered from most.
Well, you rode him for 100 feet.
You rode him like a human surfboard.
Yeah.
He was your wakeboard. I wish it was 150.
He was your wingsuit.
But at least the riverbed didn't have any rocks, and it wasn't cold as shit.
The small ones from altitude were about the size of Volkswagens. So it's amazing how things get bigger as you get closer.
Can I get a reading on the temperature?
On the ground, it was okay.
Okay.
It was
Won't shut up about the coldness.
All right, 40s and 50s.
So we pack up all of our stuff, and in doing so, I got to look at his oxygen mask, which was cracked because of his, I don't know, he must have hit it on something. Mm-hmm. But in there, he basically I had him wearing it the whole time. Because I didn't realize he was throwing up. So he basically was skip breathing on his own vomit, throwing up on me, and it was just like eggs, stew, put all of that in a bag, picked it up, and we just walked the rest of the night until we could link up.
And he was able to walk.
Yeah, until we were able to link.
That's a tough. By the way,
he was fine.
That's a tough motherfucker. Because if I told that story as him, the story would go, They told me I could make a lot of money and just doing translation. I got to fly on a plane. I'd never flown on a plane before. It was really cool. And said it was going to be a pleasant flight. So I showed up and I had a couple layers on. And then next thing I know, they strapped me to this dude who was really mean to me. And he had all this gear on. He didn't speak any English, but he was kind of a thick guy. And I got strapped to him. And then I had to put a bunch of stuff on my belly. And I was like, what? Jumping out of, huh? And these guys were jumping out of a plane. I'd never been in a plane. So I started to throw up because I was terrified. And then I kept throwing up, and then I lost consciousness, and I was breathing my own vomit. And then he was hitting me in the fucking head, really hard.
But if Andy doesn't do that, Andy's dead.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying for him.
But also
it wasn't by choice; it was by necessity.
That's a rough night.
Well,
for
but
both
he
of
knew
us.
To some extent
we were jumping out of a plane.
That's hilarious, man.
But then you're risking everyone's life.
Yeah, so that was the worst jumping experience of my life.
That sounds.
And
terrible.
you guys hoofed it.
Yeah, until we linked up with an army,
hoping you don't step on a landmine.
Well, I did tell him to walk 50 feet in front of me.
You used him as a guinea pig.
100%.
Good God, man.
As would I.
What a fucking nightmare.
What a nightmare.
So he claimed insanity 2 days later and quit. Never saw him again.
I was going to say, he damn right he quit.
We got back to the base, linked up with the guys. He did a full forward face, high lift track into a cot, slept for like 36 hours, and then quit when he woke up.
You're fucking right. Terrifying.
Yeah,
I threw away all my clothes. Like it was, I didn't realize, I mean, a lot of the pieces of the story, like the vomit thing, I was like, oh, that's why my clothes absolutely stink. Like,
Jesus Christ.
It was terrifying. One of the worst experiences of my life. So I've had some of the best jumping.
Yeah.
And then that happens.
Yeah.
God.